What is it like being a Jamaican living in Russia? Hi, I'm Xavier Murphy, the founder of Jamaicans.com. And today in Jamaicans to the World, we talk to Christine Bolt, a Jamaican who is living in Russia. Welcome, Christine.
Hi, Xavier. Nice to be here.
Well, Russia. Wow, I can't wait to get started on this one. But let me get to my typical questions before we dig in.
Sure. Fire away.
So, which part of Jamaica you come from?
I am from Kingston.
Okay.
Although I spent the first 6 years or so of my life living in Falmouth, in Trelawney, because my dad is a pastor. And when I came along, he was pastoring a church in Falmouth. So we lived there until I was 6. Although I was born in Kingston, we lived there until I was 6. And then Kingston it was after that.
Okay. So I'm going to ask the obvious because you mentioned two things here that are kind of tied in. Last name is Bolt. So we know
Wonder where you're going with this.
we know this is going to come up in the comments, right? Because once I see the Bolt, we know this is going to come up in the comments. So any relations?
And I'll tell you what I tell everybody, we are all related. We are all related. Bolt is not a common name, and so we're all related.
All right. All right.
But full disclosure, not closely related. Not closely related. We're not friends.
Okay. I see. But have you ever met him?
I have, yes. I have met him a few times. And a few years ago, attended his family's New Year's family reunion, big thing that they do every year. It was nice. They're a really great family.
Well, I am sure this name gets you a pass. And when you say you're Jamaican and you say Bolt, I am sure. Yes.
Well, I have to tell you, being from Jamaica and being like we are all aware, we sometimes overestimate that. I have been in places in the world where people have no clue. They're like, oh, Jamaica, huh? Okay. And then they actually don't know anything about Jamaica, where it's from or where it is. Or, they'll hear my name and they're like, okay.
All right. All right.
I have learned to be humble when it comes to where I'm from and my name, because the places where I typically go, people don't know so much, or like, Jamaica is not a thing here.
So then the next thing I'm going to ask is, if you went to high school in Jamaica, which high school are you representing? Because we love our high schools.
Immaculate Conception High School.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Big up to Immaculate.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Russia. Mm-hmm. How did you tell us that story? How did you get to Russia?
Oh my goodness, that's a story. I hope you have a little bit of time. I'm not quite sure how far back to go. I'll give you just a little kind of brief prehistory. Originally, I spent most of my working life in corporate Jamaica. I was actually a vice president in a large financial company. And then I was made redundant a few years ago. I had actually by that time gotten to the point of hating my job, but really loved the money and loved the position and didn't know what else I would want to do anyway. And so I kind of hung on until they made me redundant. And when that happened, I kind of decided, you know what? This is a chance for me to like restart my life. I don't have anybody who's depending on me for anything or needs anything from me, like, urgently or anything. I can do whatever the heck I want. So I picked up myself and went on a 2-month journey across the world. I went from Europe to Africa and ended up in Alaska. And then after that, I decided, okay, I need to kind of decide what I'm going to do now. And I decided that all those years standing at my office window feeling like, what is the point of all this? What am I doing all of this for? I decided, you know what, I need to be helping people. That's what I need to do. And so I decided that I would try to find a job or something with an NGO. I was like, had big dreams about working at the UN, but when you spend 16 years in the corporate world, you think that you're like, everybody will want you. They don't. If you haven't like come up through certain in certain industries, like come up through the ranks, nobody cares like where you're from or what you've done. So eventually I decided, okay, you know what, I'll volunteer. And so like I was a volunteer for about a year. I lived in Indonesia, working with an NGO. And while with underprivileged kids, I was living in some places I never thought I would, but it was an amazing experience. And so eventually, while I was there, I decided that, you know what, I will get a certification in teaching English because I'm doing it anyway. And I feel like I can do a better job, but I think I need some training and some help to see like, how can I be better at this? So I did that while I was in Indonesia. And then when my time was up in Indonesia and I left, I went back to Jamaica. I was like, okay, what's next? What's next? I've always had, like, my heart has always been out in the world, right? I'm one of these travelers where I like traveling is like air and food and water to me. It feeds my soul. But 2-week trips, like tourist vacation trips, I love those, but those don't feed me like the type of travel I do now. And so I was like, okay, I need to like get back out there. When I got back to Jamaica after Indonesia, where do I go from here? So I started kind of hunting around. Okay, I will find a job as a teacher somewhere. And as I was looking, I actually ended up with a job in Chile, and it never felt right. It just didn't feel right. And even as I was preparing to go to Chile, I was still looking and happened to come across a job for Siberia. I saw Siberia and I was like, oh, yes, that's it. That's what I need to do. That's like, it was like immediately, it felt like mine. I was like, that job is my job. That is it. And so I applied for the job and did an interview online. And it was about 2 weeks before they got back to me. I'm telling you, it was like the most nerve-wracking 2 weeks of my life because I wanted it so much. Like I went through a whole spiritual thing. I had to be like praying and like, Lord, I want this more than I want what you want. Oh my gosh, it was like a whole thing. Anyway, I got the job. And so like when I was telling people, I'm moving to Siberia, they were like, why?
I'm thinking the same thing.
My response was, well, why not? Why not? Why shouldn't I move to Siberia? Nobody had an answer. And so I did. I moved to Siberia. And actually, the region where I live is above Siberia. Above Siberia. Where I live is it's Yakutia. It's the Republic of Sakha-Yakutia. It's actually the largest republic in Russia. So yeah, that's how I came to Russia.
So in the cool there. I mean,
well, let me tell you. I've spent 4 winters here now. 4 winters. This is my 4th winter that we're just starting to come out of. And this has been typically in the winter here, we get to about we hover around in the -30s Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit.
You're saying
-30s Fahrenheit. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But this winter has been the coldest one since I've lived here. I hear that it's been the coldest one since maybe the last 10 years or so. And it was consistently -50 for about 2 months. All of December and January was between -47 and -53 most days.
Man, I can't even
My
imagine.
friends think I'm crazy.
I mean, just even thinking of minus weather to me make me shiver. I mean,
You
just
know what? There will be times when I'm walking around outside in the minus 40, minus whatever, and I'm hot because it's all in the layers, right? So we wear ski pants, for example, and I have reindeer fur boots. And it keeps you warm and you're comfortable. And I have like, I get frosty lashes, my eyelashes are white. Just you're walking, you're breathing, the condensation is going up and your eyelashes are white. It's amazing. Just there's amazing things that you can experience at temperatures and in places like this that you cannot experience anywhere else. And for me, that's priceless.
it's amazing. That is amazing that you love the cold
I do.
because I don't know a lot of our people that like the colder boy.
Yeah, you know what? And I am actually the opposite. I hate being hot. Hate it. Don't like it. I hate when I'm hot and like I think I like that kind of heat belongs on the beach. I love it when I'm hot at the beach. Otherwise, I don't want to be hot. I don't like it. But I think the fact that I kind of don't let the extreme weather or the extreme environment stop me from coming here. It has led to some experiences that, Xavier, I will never forget. Never. It's stuff I couldn't buy with money. It's been amazing.
So while you so since you're there on the experience, tell us about one of them. Tell us about one of the experiences that you said. Listen, if you come here to well, I know again, I'm saying Russia, and I know it's big, it's huge, it's massive. If you come there, tell me one of these experiences or a couple of these experiences that you say, listen, priceless. You can't, tell me.
So Xavier, when I talk about living where I live, I'm talking about living in Yakutia, okay? Because as you say, Russia is huge. People sometimes, like if they see anything happening in Moscow, for example, they'll text me, "Are you okay?" I'm like, guys, I live 6 hours flying from Moscow, okay? I'm so far away from anything that is happening. It's not like, seriously. But anyway, so when I talk about where I live here in Russia, I'm talking about Yakutia, okay? It's the northernmost republic. One of the things that I've done a couple of times that it just makes my heart sore is dog sledding. So I have actually dogs like sat on the sled and oh, it's so nice going to the forest, mush. It's not like that. Like I am actually the one
controlling the sled
and the dogs and everything.
So,
yeah,
so you are officially anointed as the person that is starting the Jamaican women's dog sled team.
I'm not that good. I've done it twice. It's exhilarating. Like you're flying through the forest and the fresh snow, and and the dogs are just running, and it's exhilarating. You fall a lot, especially when you're not used to it. You fall a lot, but it's fine. You just get up and you get back on and just keep going.
How many dogs are you talking about? Are you steering? Are these dogs trained?
For me, 2 dogs. When I've been sledding, 2 dogs, and yeah, they're trained. Sometimes they're in training, so they may not be like the best behaved, just in terms of discipline. But the first time I went, a group of us went, and my friend, she was like, "This dog is not trained well." This dog kept stopping to pee on bushes, but yeah, it's exhilarating and it's fun. I have to tell you.
Wow. Well, that's I know. You see, I don't know if I would visit in the cold, but it sounds like if I'm going to have to experience that, I'm going to have to come in the cold.
Yeah, well, for sure. It's pretty amazing in the summer also, but because most of the year here, it's, winter-like conditions. I mean, for us, people in the autumn and in the spring, we're like, oh, it's winter. Actually, it's not. It's like winter temperatures for other places, but for us, it's warm. Another thing I've that was for me, it just blew my mind. I went on a winter trip about 2 winters ago to the coldest inhabited place on earth, they call it here. Right? It's called Untitled. It's northern and a little to the east. It's several hours from the city where I live.
Mhm.
And there it gets down to like minus 70. That's typical in their winter time, minus 70. And while I was there, we did some amazing things. I went with a group of people, and on the way back, we stopped and met a reindeer herder. A reindeer herder. I went.
Was it Santa Claus? You sure it was a Santa Claus?
Right, and I went on a ride through the forest on a reindeer-drawn sled. I could not. I was like, "What is happening right now?" It was amazing. Just stuff like that. I do that. I walk across frozen lakes. All lots of things.
So have you done any of the? I've seen I'm not going to say crazy people, but people basically half naked jumping in the lake or in whatever, and then jumping back out. Have you done?
I did it once. I did it once. Well, I mean, okay, I'm not a fan of cold water. As much as I don't like to be hot, I'm not a fan of cold water, right? But I cannot live in a place like this and not like do the thing at least one time. Like, was I even here? Right? Every January, it's like a custom where people go like to the local river or whatever. The authorities sometimes will actually cut a hole in the ice, and people go and they like dunk 3 times. And a couple years ago, I did it. The water temperature, water is warmer than the air temperature.
Oh.
So, I mean, when I say warmer, I don't mean like it's actually warm, but it's warmer than the air temperature. So yes, I did it. It was cool. I did it. And when you do it, I come out and I was like, oh my gosh, I did it. And so you kind of feel kind of exhilarated again. It's something.
So tell us a little bit about the people that in where you are. What are they like? Talk to us about the people.
I have to tell you, Xavier, that the people of Yakutia are some of the best people I've ever met in my life, bar none. I have a theory that it has to do with the cold because people are so generous here. People are generous with their time, with anything. Sometimes it's kind of a kind of stern generosity where it's not like they're all grinning and stuff like that. But most of the time, it's just like this warm welcome, this warm kindness. And oh my gosh, I don't have enough words to tell you how amazing the people of Yakutia are. They have made me feel like, can I tell you something, Xavier? People tell me all the time, oh my gosh, you're so beautiful. They'll just say that to me. Before I moved here, I cannot remember people telling me that. I can't remember that. Just random people I don't even know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, occasionally people just stop me in the street and talk to me. Obviously I look different.
I know. And I was going to get to that because obviously there probably is no other, maybe not many, or probably no other Black people in the town or in the city.
Well, there are some. So there's a big university here, Northeastern Federal University, and there are students here from Africa, from different countries in Africa. Yeah, not a ton, but there are some. I don't see them often, but occasionally. And there are also like a couple of other people, not just students, who are from other Black people who are from other countries who live and work here.
Okay.
But it's not a ton. It's not a ton of people.
So when they find out that you're probably English is not the first language. Obviously you're in Russia, right?
Yeah.
But for those who speak English and they meet you and they realize that you're Jamaican, what's typically the reaction?
Okay. So there is apparently this song called Jamaica, Jamaica. I don't know where this song is from. I had never heard about it until I moved here. And when people find out that I'm from Jamaica, they'll start singing this song, Jamaica, Jamaica. I don't know this song, Xavier. I've never heard of this song before. That's what they know about Jamaica. That's mainly it,
And is it
right?
a reggae song?
No, it's not a reggae song. I think it's some song from, I think Jamaica is probably the only English thing in the song. I don't know the song. I still don't know where it's from, right? But so occasionally people will break out into that song, but they'll say, oh, Jamaica, okay. And then they'll start asking me about how I like it here, what I like about living here, how I like the food. You know, they'll ask me more about my life here than they'll ask me about where I'm from.
I see. So speaking of food,
Mm-hmm.
what's the food like there?
Oh my goodness, the food is amazing. Okay, let me just preface this by saying it's gonna sound weird, okay? Because it's just not what most of us who are from the West or from the Caribbean are used to. I've eaten moose, I've eaten reindeer, I've eaten horse, baby horse. Yummy, so good, delicious. I've eaten frozen horse liver, so good. And I've eaten frozen raw fish. Frozen raw horse liver and frozen raw fish. Okay, those are the most unusual things I've eaten here. I haven't had one bad meal. I have not had one bad meal.
Oh wow.
So good.
Wow.
That may be my mindset, right?
Mhm.
I know a lot of people who are very tied to only eating what they're used to. I'm okay. I'm completely fine with eating what is eaten where I'm at, because it's a part of the culture, it's a part of the life of the place where I am, and it's a part of experiencing life in this place. So I throw myself fully into it. Having said that, one of the things I enjoy about living here is the Georgian restaurants, Georgia the country. Right? Oh my gosh, I did not know that Georgian food was so amazing until I moved to Russia. So good. You're missing half of life if you have not had Georgian breads, okay? Bread lovers, you need to be eating shortest puri, you need to be eating khachapuri, you need to be eating all the Georgian food and Georgian wine. So good.
So you're saying this now. So I'm going to move into language. How much of the language have you picked up?
I don't know how to gauge that.
Okay.
When
But
I moved here,
would you say your okay, let's say level 1 is the highest. All right. And level 5 is the lowest. How would you rate yourself based on those levels then? You know?
I would rate myself around maybe a 3.
Oh, and that is still pretty good.
Two or
I mean,
three.
we're having conversations there.
Well, yeah. Well, three and a half years ago when I moved here, I didn't even know the Russian alphabet. Because, you know, it's a completely different alphabet. It's a Cyrillic alphabet. I didn't even know the Russian alphabet. I didn't know numbers. I knew nothing, 0. So I started at literally 0. And now I have conversations with, you know, I mean, I live life. I go shopping. I'm on the bus. I'm taking taxis, whatever. I'm living life. And yes, I have conversations. My grammar is questionable. It's questionable, but I can make myself understood and have great conversations with people. A lot of times people more want to practice their English than me practicing my Russian, but it's okay. I actually learned a lot. I've learned a lot of Russian from talking to the people who like run the fruit and vegetable stands where I buy fresh fruits and vegetables. And so they teach me a lot of vocabulary. Lots of vocabulary.
Nice. Yeah, it's something that I've heard a few people I've talked in the series. They say, listen, you got to go to the local market. It's one of the places, you know, you got to go. But are you dreaming in the language yet?
That I aspire to. I'm not dreaming in Russian. I do find myself saying things like sometimes something I would say in English, for example. Typically, now I find myself saying it in Russian. I haven't noticed that I dream in Russian, but I do, like sometimes I just do automatic translations in my head, even if I'm like not actually talking to somebody. I'll do automatic translations, and sometimes even when I'm speaking, I'm just saying things in Russian that normally I would say in English.
So what's the scene like in terms of the music scene there? Again, I know winter is the dominant season there, but is there a music scene where you'd actually even hear reggae per se?
Um, YouTube. No, not so much reggae. People think that because it's so consistently cold here and that it's mostly winter, that nothing is going on, like that we're all hibernating for 7 months of the year, but it's not true. There's always stuff going on. There are always activities, there are always things are open, things are happening, venues are having events and so on. There are all kinds of different music here, right? Where I live, it's pretty close to Asia, and so there's a lot of Asian influence, right? Like K-pop is popular, but then also music from the 90s and the 80s and even some disco is popular. People love ABBA. Mamma Mia! People will just break out in singing Mamma Mia in a party or whatever. So it's very kind of varied. Russian music obviously is very popular, and the old Russian music also. People, just like how when we hear certain music, from the 60s or the 70s or 80s,
Yes.
like, hey,
Yes.
dance start play, we're like, oh no, we all start, right? It's the same. It's the same. Like people just, it's a music they grew up with, and so they love it. But there's a rich mix and variety of music here. There's one point, I have a friend who she goes to music college here. There's an instrument here which I'd never heard of before in my life, before I moved here, called the hummus. Hummus. It's mouth, the Jew's harp. It's called a Jew's harp in other areas. We don't have one in Jamaica, as far as I know. We don't have this instrument in Jamaica, and so my first time knowing of it was when I moved here. It's a big instrument here. So my friend goes to college, to music college. She's studying hummus and she's studying all these things. She decided she was forming a band at one point, and she's like, Chris, come join our band. I'm like, no, why? You know what? Somehow she convinced me, and I was there, like the lead singer in her band.
What?
I'm telling you, Xavier, I'm telling you. There and on, I even learned this song in Russian called Umka. It was so cute. It's this little lullaby.
Right. You're going to sing a little piece of that right now.
This is like a few years ago. I don't even remember. I don't remember most of the song, but
all
anyway.
Right. I'm not going to put you on the spot on that one.
Thank you.
we will look out for when somebody quietly link in the comments that YouTube or that video on Facebook of you lead singing and taking over this band.
I don't think it exists, but we'll see.
You never know. Tell me, is there like a local custom that you found a little strange when you got there? That you say, man, this is kind of different, and it may not be, you may not have one, but you may. Is there any customs that you're saying, oh, it's a little different, or you love it? I absolutely love this custom. It may be something different than what we've done in the West.
You know what? I think that living in Indonesia before I moved here prepared me to live here. When I moved to Indonesia, I was in culture shock for about 3 months before I realized that I was in culture shock, right? I was actually coming out of culture shock when I realized that I was in culture shock in the first place, because I've been traveling my whole life, like just short trips, vacation type trips, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. And so when I was moving to Indonesia, I didn't think culture shock would be a thing. It never occurred to me, but it was so vastly different from what I had ever experienced in my life. You know, Indonesia is a majority Muslim country, and it was so vastly different and so much hotter than anywhere. I mean, the equator runs through that country. It's hot, hot, hot. And so having had that experience and having realized that I had gone through culture shock, when I was moving here, I was aware of it, right? And so when I came here, I came with a mindset of this is going to be very different from anything I've experienced or anything I'm used to. And so I came with a sense of not like, oh my gosh, that's so weird. I came with a sense of, wow, that's interesting. Right. So there's nothing I have found that has been like strange or anything, but there's one custom that I love, love it. It's called the Yakutian kiss. It's called the Yakutian kiss. I didn't even realize it was a thing until like a few months after I'd lived here. And I was like, why do people keep smelling me? So what it is that like when you embrace someone, right? So like say I hug you and you know, your face is next to the person's face, you just inhale. You just inhale. It's just like a deep breath. You just inhale. And it's called a Yakutian kiss. So I'm hugging you and I'm like, and I inhale. And they inhale me and I inhale them. It's such a touching, sort of affectionate kind of thing. Yeah. I just automatically do it with my friends. I mean, now it's COVID, nobody's hugging each other. but when I do it, it's just it feels tender. It feels tender to me, and I just love it.
Oh man, that one is new and never heard anything like this one, but very, very interesting.
Yeah,
and keep that in mind. Is it just that region? So it's just that region.
As far as I know, I don't know of people doing it in other parts of Russia, but I mean, maybe when I meet you in person, Xavier, I'm gonna give you a Yakutian kiss.
And I will know what it is. I won't think it's strange. But you also mentioned that you're close enough to Asia. Is it Korea that's near, or is it China? Or
Korea
both?
is, well, China, we actually share a border. Like I could drive to Vladivostok. Vladivostok is maybe I could drive to Vladivostok, which is like what they call it, the San Francisco of Russia. And like just across the border is China. But I can fly direct from here, from Yakutia to Seoul. I think I've done it before. The flight is about 5 or 6 hours. So flying from here to Moscow is about the same amount of time as flying from here to Seoul. One is a different country, one is the same country.
It's funny you mentioned Vladivostok, right? Because I worked with a company years ago with this company I had worked with. And the gentleman who was a programmer always came up with these weird code names for the code of the software that we're developing. All right. And I know I may be talking Spanish to some people, but you know, just say like version 1, version 2, version 3 of the software. So he comes up with this name. He comes up with the hardest names for people to pronounce. And it was, he always came up with Russian names. And one of the names he comes up with is Vladivostok. And I'm like, Vladivostok. Why? How are we going to write this down? And he says, and I said, is this real? Because I never knew, you know, the city. I never knew what it was. He just said Vladivostok. And we're like, and he's like, yeah, it's a real city and it's in Russia. You know, so you know, go look it up. And I was like, oh, really? It's a real city.
Yeah. Novosibirsk, they call that the capital of Siberia. But you know what? Speaking of, you know, people not knowing these things and these places, before I was gonna move here to Yakutia, I had never heard of Yakutia. Never heard of it. I'm sure you never heard of it before I told you that's where I live.
I never heard of it until you said to me, this is where I am. And I'm having difficulty pronouncing it. That's why if you all see I've avoided pronouncing it, I'm having difficult I've said Yakutia and Yakutia and all sorts of stuff. So I'm having difficulty pronouncing it.
Yeah, Yakutia.
And I looked it up on Google before you and I got, days ago before, and I'm looking up the city and I'm like, and trying to pronounce it, and I'm like, why am I having such a hard time pronouncing this name?
Yeah, our English mouths don't run across the consonants so easily. We think vowels should go in certain places, and they don't in some of these words. But what I was gonna say is that Yakutia is actually 1/3 of the landmass of Russia. It takes up 1/3 of the entire area of the whole country of Russia, and yet people have never heard of it. Never heard of it. It blows my mind.
Yeah, and you're so right. And you just telling me that it's 1/3 even blows my mind even further. That we have never really we hear of Siberia. We hear again. I hear of Vladivostok and Moscow and all these places, but it was the first time
it's huge. 1 million people live here in Yakutia. About a little over 1 million people live in Yakutia. As I said, it's 1/3 the size of Russia. Jamaica is a full stop compared. It's a full stop.
No, don't say that. Don't let the Jamaicans hear that.
In terms of size. Okay, because you could take up Jamaica and put in Yakutia and you wouldn't see it. It's so small. and 3 million people live in Jamaica.
Well, that's true. That's true. That is true. Our influence is far and wide and so. And so you listen, I've had so much fun with this conversation. I have tons of more questions I could ask. And I have a couple more. Let me ask a couple more.
Sure, I'm free to talk to you as long as you want.
So, what would you say was the biggest adjustment? I know you said you were prepared, but what was the biggest adjustment you think you had to make when you got there?
That's a great.
The winters? Was it I don't know if it's the winters, preparing for the winter. I don't know.
That's a great question. Wow, I don't know. Actually,
you sound like, I mean, I'll be honest with you. You sound like you are well adjusted. Okay. And that's just what the only reason I ask that question is because I'm like, man, it sounds like they took this Jamaican out of Jamaica and drop her there in Russia. And it's almost like, I've been here. I mean, this is it. And that's why I'm like, is there anything that you have to adjust to? It doesn't sound like it. You just
well, perhaps the language. Perhaps the language is really the only adjustment I had to make. But what the truth is, when I came here, when I just arrived in Yakutia, in Yakutsk, right, in the major city of the region, I thought, okay, it's a city. I mean, it's a big town, right? It's not really a huge metropolis, but I'm like, okay, it's okay, But I fell in love with Yakutia before long. I think it's the environment. When I say the environment, I mean the actual nature of the place. It's stunning. It's beautiful. I mean, in every season. Not just, I mean, in winter, it has its stark beauty, which is my favorite, right? But in summer, it's just as beautiful. I go on camping trips. I go on hiking trips. I go, I go all over the place. And it's amazing. It's just the wealth of nature here it's amazing, right? That's one of the reasons why I love it. The second reason is because of the people. Honestly, the people,
and it sounds like you have developed a circle of friends really quickly there. Is it people you work with? And I didn't even ask what you do. I really didn't ask what you do. I think it's teaching, or maybe the NGO. But it sounds like you have developed a circle of friends there that you have a good support system.
I do. I have developed a few of my friends are also expatriates.
Uh-huh.
People I met here, right? So I have a couple of friends from South Africa. They're not black, by the way. Everybody from South Africa is not black. People think that if you're from Africa, you're black. I should remind me to tell you a story about that when I finish answering the question, right?
All right.
So I have a couple of friends from South Africa and like from England and from other places, and I have Yakutian friends who are Saha from this region, people who and for example here Christmas, December 25th is not a holiday because we go by the Russian Orthodox calendar. So New Year's, it's like Christmas, right? So whereas we would spend December 25th with our family, December 30th is family time here. It's a family holiday here. And the people who I know and people who are my friends from the first year I was here, they said, you know what, come over to my house for New Year's. They could have just said, oh, Happy New Year or whatever. And I mean, I'm a solo female traveler. I'm used to being on my own. I'm fine, right?
Right.
But they invite me into their homes, into their families. I've gone like last summer, because it was the whole world was locked down, and so were we. My friend, she was going to the. Okay, I'm about to use a term that you will sound weird. It's called a dacha. It's like summer home, country home.
Okay.
And she and her family were going there. She's like, Chris, come on, we're going to the dacha. Come, let's just go. I'll go to the dacha. It's like rustic, but it's like it's just beautiful time just with their family, and it's just amazing. So yeah, I have a great circle of friends here. My circle is small. After I left my previous life, I shed a whole lot. I shed stuff and I shed people.
You have to do that sometimes. Sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah, without regret, I shed stuff and I shed people, and I am now very selective about the people who are close to me, and I have the best people close to me, the best. Wow. People from here, but also people like my best friend she's American. I met her in Indonesia and she lives in Denver, right? So I have an international circle of love and support.
Amazing. So I'm gonna wind it down because
sure.
I may even take this conversation aside, but
sure.
I gotta wind it down. But here's a question I have for you, and I know you're well adjusted. You land in Jamaica, you get off the plane. What is the first thing you're going to go get to either eat, or the first thing you're going to do? What is it?
Okay, the first thing that happens is like, oh my gosh, I'm so hot. Okay, that's the first thing. All right. So hot, I'm so hot. This is so hot. Okay. The second thing, patty. Stop on the way home at like a juicy patty or a tasty patty and get a patty. Usually because I'm hungry and because a patty is a patty. You gotta eat a patty, right? Yeah, but a patty.
All right. That's
patty and a Danish. Patty and a Danish.
Patty and a Danish. So I know when I'm coming to and I will mess the name up again, the city's name. Yakutsk.
Close enough.
Whenever I get to Yakutsk, I'm gonna make sure we have the frozen patties ready for you.
Okay, you know what? And I'll make sure that I have the frozen raw fish and the frozen raw fish.
My wife.
And we're gonna eat some Bambi.
Okay.
Some Bambi is yummy.
No, we're not doing. I don't know about the Bambi part of it, but
it's so good. It's delicious. It really is.
So here is how I typically end. And listen, Christine, thank you for sharing your story. Just a lot of information. Just a lot. I mean, just really great. We almost spent an hour here. I typically go about 25 minutes. And this was just a really good conversation here.
Because I talk a lot.
I talk a lot too. But But I usually end this way.
Mhm.
I ask my guests to teach me, and I already mess up this city's name already. Yaka. I won't.
Yakut.
But how do you say bye-bye? The most informal way of saying bye-bye in Russian or in that particular region.
Well, okay, so there is a language here called Saha language. I don't know it. Okay, I know one word in Saha, which is maktal, which means thank you. So that's the extent of my my Saha language. But in Russian, formally, I would say goodbye, до свидания. But
Okay.
because you and I are friends now, I would
Yes.
say пока,
What was
пока,
that?
пока,
Paka?
пока. Uh-huh.
Okay. Christine? Paka.
Пока, Xavier.
Show us some love now. Hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell. That way you don't miss a video.